Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining the Ascending Abundance YouTube channel. My name is Pavel, and I cover all kinds of strategies on how to create capital using your own capital by investing in stocks, crypto, real estate, businesses, and anything else that comes my way. It's great to retire early with little debt and small expenses, but there's also another way of making a ton of money through various investment vehicles and then retiring in the comfort of your own spending habits. That's what I'm exploring, and this video is going to be super short. It's really on pay off your debts or invest for the future, because when the money comes in, there's always a choice. And I was always under the impression that you should borrow to invest because the interest on the debt that you borrow is tax deductible. You can put it into the assets that are hopefully growing, and over the decades, if they compound, you will definitely be ahead, even if you need to pay taxes occasionally on some dividends or interest income, because your interest is tax deductible. Hopefully that sort of offsets some of the income. And then if you allow the compounding to grow, especially in some of those tax-free accounts like 401k in US, which is RRSP in Canada, and in Canada I am. However, having said all that and done this many times in my life, there's always a period when you evaluate and look at your level of debt and you say, are my assets actually growing as fast as I wish them to be? And is my debt now becoming so high that servicing it at the ever-increasing interest rates is becoming a little bit cumbersome? So I'm still up for taking a chunk of money, say $100,000 comes your way, you take it and you invest in something productive like a real estate investment that is hopefully cash flow positive. It's really hard to find a cash flow positive property in Ontario, especially in Southern Ontario, Toronto, Barrie, I don't know, Hamilton. You got to get creative. You got to go with like triplexes. You got to put garden suites. You have to do remodeling. Maybe if you kind of buy it really low, maybe you can make some money. Maybe you can even cash flow or maybe break even. Either way, it's tough. At the rates that they are, there was another increase of 0.25% today by Bank of Canada. It's so tough that I would say, unless it's a deal and that you clearly see as a deal, it is cash flowing or you can afford this cash flow, then don't buy. It's okay not to buy. Robert Kiyosaki in his books describes how him and his wife waited for 4 years before buying some property. It's okay, like Warren Buffett, not to invest for 12 or 14 years. He was lagging S&P 500. He's got $170 billion in cash. Well, sitting in treasuries, probably most of it. And yet, he was not investing because there were no deals. And in the meanwhile, if you got debt and the interest rate on that debt is growing, it may make sense to start paying off that debt. I've been doubling up my mortgage payments for the last 2 to 3 years. I know that cash flow is going out the door. I cannot use it to buy another property or purchase some stock. But there is no guarantee that stock is going to go up. There is no guarantee that real estate is just going to keep appreciating and cash flowing for me whatsoever. I already have a portfolio of real estate. I already have a portfolio of stocks. I already got some crypto. My debts are fairly high. We are thinking about retirement at some point in our lives. Think about your health. If you're healthy, fantastic. It may not stay that way forever. Do you know anybody who's got, well, God forbid cancer, but there's also some diagnoses that could be just moderately sort of impacting your lifestyles or your health or whatnot. And then all of a sudden your future perspective changes. You're not able to do certain things. A friend of mine had a fracture. He fractured his leg at the ski accident. Hopefully he recovers, but it's already been 4 months and he's got probably a year to go before he goes back. Well, it could have been not just a leg, or it could have been more than a leg. And he would recover for longer, or might not be ever able to enjoy the skiing and the surfboarding and so on. In my own family, there's an event that impacted all of us health-wise, and just the plans change. You might want to have that flexibility earlier in your life to be debt-free. You might not want to carry high levels of debt just in case something happens to you. So that trade-off is, of course, depending on your level of comfort with risk. And if you're younger, if you're healthier, it's totally okay to borrow, and we did the same. But at some point, we're choosing to also pay that debt back. Maybe it's with future inflated dollars. That was my thing to say. In the future, the dollars are going to be worth less. If I have to pay that debt, that is going to be kind of deflated principal. The purchasing power of that dollar is not going to be the same. So if I have to pay back $100,000 in 20 years from now, it's really the same as say $60,000 or $50,000 today. So why don't we wait and wait and wait until we repay it? Well, at some point, especially with retirement or health issues, you may not be able to be on track for that. What if you want to retire early? What if something else happens? So debt repayment is it's not a bad thing. You're guaranteed a small but consistent return because you no longer have to pay that interest. It's a huge psychological relief not to be owing to the banks or whoever else you owe the money to. Understanding that you're not paying interest, you don't have to work to pay extra, that you no longer owe the principal either. So you're freeing up the interest payments and the principal payment. And if you've been doubling up that payment, as I was, then that double up also kind of goes away. And all of a sudden, all of this cash is freed up for you to maybe continue investing or borrow again for a new opportunity that you see that's really appealing. Borrow then again a lump sum and use that in the future for something else. But you need to have that ability to borrow at those rates and to finance and pay the interest on that newly borrowed amount. So unless you pay down, I pay down in my case, unless I pay down some of the old debt, free up that cash so that it could support any kind of new debt for new deals, then I can't really borrow that because I won't be able to support it. And there are no deals that are a steal of a deal that, it's just cash flowing like crazy and will fully support the borrowing. I know some people find it. I listen to a ton of podcasts and YouTube videos that, tell me otherwise, that there are so many deals to be had. Real estate has been and continues to be a fantastic vehicle for wealth creation. There's absolutely deals to be had in crypto and must be in stocks as well. But none of that is guaranteed. None of that is 100% achievable, easy to find, and it's just laying down there on the surface. If that deal comes along, I'll be happy to consider and potentially participate. In the meanwhile, we're aggressively paying our debt, and I am happy that as the interest rates are now rising, I'm happy that a year ago I was doubling up my mortgage. 2 years ago I was doubling up my mortgage. Because guess what? Stocks had not risen a lot. Canadian banks, if you look at TD Bank, Royal Bank, probably all the other banks, their stock prices happen to be where they used to be 5 years ago. 5 years, the bank is just paying you a bit of a dividend. It's a nice cash flowing Canadian stock. But those banks have been stuck. They've been stuck for 5 years. Where is the guarantee this is not going to continue for a couple more years? Nothing. In the meanwhile, if you got rid of that debt, it's good. It's for good. It's never a responsibility for you to come up with that cash again to continue paying any of it. You're no longer slaving sort of for somebody's interest. You are free, and that freedom is priceless. So do participate in deals, do borrow, but also be mindful that at some stage, give yourself permission to pay that debt off. Don't carry those crazy loads. De-risk yourself when you have to be and be ready to pounce at the next opportunity. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great one and make that capital grow.